Now, you're very welcome to Tree Talk episode 172 with myself, Jack Neville, and Matt O'Callaghan of the Weekly Observer and Vale Star. This has been pre recorded after last week's shenanigans, so there won't be any live questions this week, but I'm sure we'll get through a world of stuff. We have hurling, football, Camogie, ladies football, calls from abroad, jerseys, Congress, a load to get through, so stay tuned for all that and more as usual.
The impression again we get out with what you put into it's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
But not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it hard. He's put it over.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
Now, Matt, how are you, I suppose, on this dreary enough Wednesday? It isn't great, but it's dry here in Ballysteen. What's it like in your place?
Well, I'm loath to say to you, Jack, I'd tease you and say that the sun is splitting the rocks here in Glenrue, but no, it's a nice day. It's a pleasant day, but chilly.
Yeah, I was at the UL game last night against MTU Cork and just miserable altogether. It was actually moved from the grass pitch onto the Astro. That's how bad it was. But we'll get into all of it.
I was in the comfort of my armchair, Jack. Not so comfortable at what I was watching. I was watching UCC bow out of the Fitzgibbon Cup, and I know we'll be talking about it later. But I was so disappointed, my old alma mater. But sure, look, they've won Fitzgibbon, Jack, so we won't complain.
Yeah, I know you're disappointed with the college, as you like to call it. I'll always have to call it UCC. But I suppose we start with some good news, and you got a nice surprise of a phone call during the week.
I did. I got a social call for somebody that has left this country with about 40 years and was a fantastic hurler here in his day. Eddie McGrath from Patrick. He called me a social call. I knew him well over the years, and he's an avid listener. He told me of Treaty Talk every week, and that it connects him. It connects him with home, and he can get it loud and clear. So it gives you an idea, Jack, of where the tentacles of Treaty Talk are extending to. But I want to wish Eddie the very best of luck, and he has done Trojan work since he left these shores. He was on the verge of the Limerick team when he left here, and made a couple of appearances with Limerick, but. He has done Trojan work with the Michael Cusick's club in Sydney, an absolutely fantastic ambassador for Gaelic games, and of course, he's actually the uncle of Limerick goalkeeper David McCarthy.
Right.
So, he comes from a family steeped, absolutely, the McGrath family steeped in tradition. Pat, everybody probably knows him, is involved with Black Rock there and that sort of a thing, his brother. And I just want to say hello to Eddie. Hope you're tuning in today, and that all the very best, and looking forward to touching base with you when you're back here in these shores again.
Yeah, it's always lovely to hear that someone's listening first off, and if they're enjoying it, all the better, because we're here for the long run anyway. 172 down, that's nearly 3 years now. It's more than 3 years. We're into our 4th year, so it's been very enjoyable, and as always, we love to get the feedback from people. We won't be able to get it live today, as I mentioned, because we are recording, because we did have those issues with the gremlins in the Wi-Fi. So by the time we get CA, it'll be all perfect, but it's running fine here so far, Matt. But we'll get into nitty gritty, because we had 3 games last weekend to look forward.
But before we go on to that, Jack,
yes.
I'm very heartened with a couple of motions that are going to Congress.
Yes,
and one is it's something that I have spoken about in this cast in the past, and I think we spoke about it very, very recently, actually, in the context of one of the county finals. and that is the number markings on jerseys. Now, I understand that there's a motion going to Congress on that matter from a Cork club. I think it's the Killer Club in Cork. It's one of the Cork clubs are taking a motion to Congress seeking that there would be proper numbering and clear proper numbering on all jerseys henceforth. And they're absolutely right, because it's, there's much point in having a program for supporters if they cannot read the numbers. I know it has been a nightmare in recent years, and I suppose has it all got to do with this cool thing? It's not cool to have proper numbers or big numbers, or I don't know what, Jack. That had been nearer to your generation than mine, but
well, you're telling me anyway, Ballystine have to get new jerseys, seeing as we have the yellow band going around the back.
Yeah, well, the numbers have to be very, very clearly legible from if this motion is passed, which I hope to God it is, because it's a nightmare it's a nightmare first of all to supporters, and it's a nightmare to referees, and may I be a bit selfish for a moment and say that it is a nightmare to us that do reporting on matches.
Yeah, it could have been useful in Tralee on Saturday night with the case of mistaken identity for Niall Scully and his black card, but we won't get into that. Another motion that probably has far greater consequences is the kind of amalgamation of the GA with ladies football and Camogie, and that's something that we've kind of been championing for a while, and it looks to be the way forward, really.
Well, it looks to be the way forward, and very, very interestingly, it comes from the GPA, and it comes from the GPA on the back of a survey that they have taken of their members, and in which 97% voted or opted in favour of it. Now, the motion is a small bit loose in that it's not demanding that it happens, because it is in train, but it's moving very slowly, but it's calling. It's calling for to have it expedited, the amalgamation, and I think there's an absolute compelling case for it. And Tom Parsons, among others, in what will be their submission to Congress, I think will make a compelling case. And look, we're going down that road, Jack, in baby steps. We should start taking long steps.
Yeah,
and it is the way forward. And I understand that there are plans this year for the Leinster Senior Football finals to be played together, the men's and the women's finals. So, that's a giant step forward, and certainly, I think the LGFA have been very, very proactive in doubling up their games with Gaelic games, and and let's face it, Jack. Let's face it. The LGFA have a very, very, very good product.
Yeah,
and people are buying into it. 55,000 at the All Ireland final, at the biggest of any female sporting event in Europe. So, Jack, we can't argue with it. And I think absolutely there's a compelling case. I certainly hope that those two motions are passed.
Yeah, you definitely be hopeful that they're going to pass, because it just seems to be the right way forward, just to get increased exposure. You said 55,000 at an All-Ireland final. At the All-Ireland final day, hopefully we can get closer to the 82,000 that it holds. But we'll get into the game.
Of course, Jack, there was a switch of emphasis under Egan O'Farrell when he was president. He was emphasising that the way forward was probably to have the one club concept, which is a fantastic concept. And then there is no reason why the two of them can work hand in hand. It's absolutely ridiculous having 2 or 3 different units of the same family in the same parish. The day has come, rather than being bickering about facilities, this, that, and the other thing, that the GA family goes together as one unified unit, one unified family, and be it hurling, football, ladies football, camogie. I'm equally enthused about all 4, and handball for that matter. We we have a wonderful suite of games in our association, Jack.
Yeah.
And, you know, we should do everything possible to project them to the public. And I think the public will buy in big time to this. And, like, you know, because there's a greed there for GA at the moment and for games. You can see the turnout at games, the turnout for the Munster Senior League and the National Hurling League and all that sort of thing. And there's an appetite there that's just, you know, insatiable at the moment.
Yeah, there is a huge appetite for games, and there's a lot of games for us to get through. So we will go back to last week, and we'll start with the footballers today. I wasn't there, you weren't there. Pa Rannan was there, and I'll be talking to Pa next week, and we'll get his insight into the game, because Limerick aren't playing this weekend. They have a break. They always had a break. They're playing Loud next weekend, so we can only talk about the game by like the meaning, the result. But 2-9 to 11-point winners in Antrim is nothing to be laughed at, Matt.
Nothing to be laughed at, Jack, and certainly you would have got long odds in it before the campaign started, and you'd have got long odds in it, I'd say, once the campaign started, and even that's notwithstanding the fact that Limerick had beaten Longford. But like it's the type of start to the campaign, Jack, that Billy Lee would have dreamt of.
Yeah,
you know. Because talking to Billy before the Longford game, like he was emphasising, you know, the fact that Limerick had 4 games at home, and like, you know, their success or failure this year was going to hinge mainly on how successful they were going to be in their home games. And here he is now back from Antrim with 2 points in the bag, having picked up the 2 points at home in the first round. It's the stuff that dreams are made of, Jack. But I'll tell you one thing. It tells us one thing. First of all, it tells us how far we've come from the game against Kerry in the opening round of the McGrath Cup. But above all, it tells you something about Billy Lee's panel and his panel from last year. Starting off, he had lost 6 players coming into this year's campaign. He lost the three further players after the first round against Longford. And like that would test the best panel in Ireland. And he still was able to name a squad and a team that was capable of going up and picking up 2 points in Antrim. Antrim, who were flying, Jack.
Yeah.
Absolutely flying under Enda McGinley. Now, but we did make the point here last year that they may have been slightly fortunate in winning promotion. In their 3 Division 4 North games last year, they won all 3 by a point, single point. You know, which is sailing close to the wind. They had a good win over Waterford in the semi-final, or you know, the promotion playoff, which guaranteed them that they were going up to Division 3. And like, I suppose maybe we read too much into the fact of. But it had to be an excellent performance that they went to Fermanagh and came home with a huge win, 114 to 8 points. And you were saying to yourself, right, the Antrim football bandwagon is rolling now at this stage. But I think it's after getting a bump back down to earth, and it wasn't a soft landing. Because they possibly wouldn't have seen it coming. Now, another point about it is, Jack, and we've said it time and time here again in this podcast, that I was never too worried about Limerick's ability and capacity to create goal-scoring chances. But I had serious worries, and the jury was out on their capacity to take them. But it looks as if they have, to a certain extent, to a great extent, that they have rectified that.
Yeah,
and Billy would probably be the first to admit that himself.
Yeah, they went to Antrim 2 years ago in the 5th round of the league. They'd won their first 4 games, and was it 2-21 to 1-12 or something? It was a nice loss for Limerick. And I feel like I wasn't there that day either now, but they passed up a lot of goal scoring chances on that day, I think.
That's you're absolutely spot on, Jack. That's a microcosm of what we're talking about, because on that particular day they created 5 or 6 gilt-edged goal chances and only took 1. And that game was immediately after they're taking 5 against Wicklow.
Yeah, so they're the top goal scorers. They're the top goal scorers across the 4 divisions. And did you ever think? And it's not in disrespect for the Limerick footballers, but it's just more of a football versus hurling. Did you ever think that the Limerick footballers would outscore the hurlers in the one weekend?
I didn't. I didn't. Certainly, in the present climate, it would probably be the last thing that you would expect. But I know we'll be talking about that in a minute. But yeah, I suppose an interesting statistic. How do you come up with those ones, Jack?
That's actually I just saw on Twitter. Owen Ryan from Adair just had it up. Now, I mean, anyone could have copped it, but Owen was the first one I saw to cop that one. So I shout out to him there. But yeah, like I said, it was a brilliant win for Limerick. Like, and we won't dwell on it too much because obviously they will be playing Loud next week. Next week's show will be more dedicated to football because the Hurlers will be off next week. So, is there anything else you want to say in that game?
I'm absolutely 100% sure, Jack, and as you are and we all are, Billy Lee will not be basking on the 2 wins.
No, definitely not.
Billy Lee's, and that is part of his formula for success. Billy Lee is sole focus now. He won't want to hear the words Longford or Antrim. Only one word he'll want to hear for the next 2 weeks, and that's Loud.
Yeah, and you just hope that they did it in 2020. They built up a head of steam at the start of the year and kept it going right through. So be hopeful that this year can be the same and the players are stepping up to the mark. We've obviously lost a lot of frontline players, as you said, but the others are stepping up in their place. And even some of the French players got injured as well after the first day in there.
That's it. And like we spoke about the 6 that were missing, the 3 frontline players, the 3 squad players, and now 3 of the players that started against Longford are injured as well. So
it seems to be just next man up.
Billy will welcome the break and give an opportunity to those to get back.
Yeah, and I'm sure there'll probably be room for improvement in that side because they are an ambitious group. But we'll talk about that more next week in preparation for Loud. But 2 from 2, top of the table. It's a good place to be, I suppose. Limerick and Westmeath both have 4 points from 4. You've Antrim and Laois have 2, and then Longford, Louth, Wicklow, and Fermanagh are all on 1 point. So there was a lot of draws in the group as well, which bodes well for Limerick. But we will touch on that more next week.
It's going to be a tight group. That's what it is, and every point is going to be absolutely crucial. But you would have to say, and this is without wanting to jump too far ahead of ourselves, be it Louth. And you're definitely looking upwards rather than any possibility of what's coming behind you.
Yeah, that's what they should be aiming for anyway. I referred briefly to the score there, but the Limerick Hurlers were beaten by Wexford on Sunday, 111-11. It was, well, I suppose it was more like a vintage game of hurling. It was far from the vintage hurling of Limerick that we've seen in recent years. Tough conditions in Wexford. There was strong breeze there. Pitch was heavy. Limerick didn't get going. Wexford didn't really get going. What's that? 23 scores in a game is madness for this generation of hurling. You'd often see teams score that on their own. Limerick outscored them. They got 2-6 in the first 15 minutes of last year's All-Ireland final, and they couldn't even muster that over the course of 70 minutes. What were your initial thoughts on the game, Matt?
My overview of the game was that it was a very poor game.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that because Limerick lost, but there were factors that militated against a good game, probably the conditions most notably, which were definitely challenging and trying. And we said here last week, even though I thought Limerick would win, how difficult it is to go to Wexford Park. But, we didn't have to wait till last Sunday to know that Wexford are a completely different animal, completely different team altogether on their home patch in Wexford Park. They seem to rise, and the crowd seems to get behind them and seems to get the best out of them. Like, they've had some notable victories in recent years in Wexford Park, and last Sunday, of course, will go down as one of them. Like when the champions come to town, and you beat them, and like the lead up to the game, if you were to judge by the preseason competitions, and I suppose if the game last Sunday told us anything, it is that the pre-season competitions actually count for naught when we're going into the league, because just to reiterate the background, Limerick had that spectacular win over Clare in the final of the Munster Senior Cup, and while that was all happening, Wexford were suffering a spectacular trouncing at the hands of Dublin in the Welsh Cup final. So they say a week is a long time in politics, so you'd be inclined to think that a week is a long time in hurling as well. But it isn't as simple as that. It just is that the pre-season competitions are just that, pre-season competitions. They're an opportunity to try out players, test the waters as it were, get as much game time into fellas as you possibly can. But really, it is when the league starts that the real business starts. And it starts more so now under the new structure, when the league is running straight into the championship, Jack. Like heretofore, you played your pre-season, you went straight into the league, you had a break, and then you return for the championship. Like, we're scarcely 2 months away from the championship. And here we're talking in early February. That was unthinkable a number of years ago, because, it was the dust rising, and in June was championship time. So, but look, I'm not reading too much into it. Into the result, it was disappointing. I suppose nobody will know that more than John Kiley and his charges and his backroom team. And I'm sure that you're going to see a bit of a backlash when Galway come to town on Saturday evening. Yeah,
it would be foolish to read too much into that game, Matt. Like we saw last year, under par against Galway, lost again following week against Waterford, didn't reach it. But when a week later, when their backs against the wall, they put 33 points on Cork and continued in that vein. That this Limerick team is not a team you want to anger.
No, and like, in the aftermath, Jack, I found it in the last week or 10 days leading into the game in Wexford. You probably found the same down in your side. I saw that I thought the expectation reached unprecedented heights. When we'd only 4 of our All-Ireland team against Clare, and the way we put Clare to the sword, it drove expectations absolutely through the roof. And I'm sure if Limerick were to get a wake-up call, probably the first round in Wexford was probably the time to get it.
Yeah, get it as soon as possible. And you have to see that, like, for a lot of those players, for a number of those players, it was the first start of the year. Now, Declan Hannon was one of those. I thought Declan Hannon had a brilliant game at centre back, and I want to talk about the defence in a minute, but Robbie Handley got the start. Like, he had a long year with Kilmallock. He just seemed a small bit off the pace. Dave Reedy was in the corner, wasn't himself. Zaran Galan's first start to the year. There was just the freeze went erratic. There was just a lot going on, and I would imagine that for those players that played last week, that they'll have a chance against Galway. I'm sure John will give them all a chance. But on the defence, if you were to take a positive out of it, the defence were superb. Now I know Wexford got the only goal of the game, but there was a lot of steps.
Nicky Quaid couldn't be to blame for the goal anyway.
No, I don't think any of the backs could be either. I think there was a lot of steps taken.
No, and the goal is another issue, or whether it should have stood or not. The general consensus is that it shouldn't.
I think it's a case of Mikey Dwyer was getting fouled, and the steps were restarting when he was getting fouled, which isn't the case. But look, it is what it is. But like the unit of Nash, Morrissey.
I would have the utmost respect and regard for Tom Walsh as a referee. I think he's an excellent referee. But you can look at it two ways. Like, if you look at it in terms of the number of steps taken, it was a free out. But then there was a question of whether Mikey Dwyer had been fouled. And I think there was more than a little suspicion that he was.
Yeah, probably was.
So in those circumstances, was the referee giving him the advantage?
Yeah, but I still think if you get advantage, you still have to make a player. You have to get onto the hurling somehow. Look,
Yeah.
Limerick had a more than offensive.
His finish was excellent. Like there was nothing Nicky Quaid could have done about it. But like when Nicky Quaid was tested by Conor McDonald, like he brought off what is a candidate for save of the season already.
Yeah, standard. Nicky, in fairness.
Yeah, but like it's Nicky, it goes down as routine, but it wasn't first class save. Like,
yeah, but
no question about it.
The defensive unit as a whole, if I guarantee you any game from here on in, if Limerick concede 1-11, they're winning that game. Like there's no two ways about it. Just the forwards didn't click. I'm just wondering, Matt, like if the championship.
But before you go away from the defense, Jack.
I'm not going away from the defense now, but you can come on there with whatever you want to say.
Yeah, no, but I thought the performance of Barry Nash was off the charts.
Yeah, he's still a new cornerback, like, which is hard to fathom, really.
Hard to fathom it, absolutely. But you see, he's such a hurler, like, that such a good hurler and has such a suite of skills like that. I thought he was absolutely outstanding. He was outstanding. I thought twofold in the Munster campaign. I thought he was outstanding as a player, and also, Jack, I thought he was outstanding as a leader.
Yeah, and as well with Barry, like you couldn't question his hurling ever really, but he just seems to have garnered that kind of knack of getting the hurling in the right places that the best cornerbacks have. I'm sure training with Sean Finn and Rich English and Dan Morrissey and playing against the likes of Aaron Gillan and Shamie Flanagan and Casey, like you're going to pick up those things. But my question to you was, we had our back unit of 7 on Sunday. If the championship was this weekend, who's losing out? Because you've Sean Finn and Kyle Hayes there as well.
You have. This is the point. This is the point. But it's above our pay scale to make that decision, Jack. Thanks be to God.
You're taking a diplomatic approach to that one and leaving that to John. But it's a brilliant problem for John to have.
It's a brilliant scenario to have.
What I will say at the other end of the field, though, and the Limerick half forward line dropped a lot. There was a lot of space for the full forward line, and they didn't make hay. Now I know the conditions are difficult, but is there a fear that Limerick are a bit bottom heavy, we'll say, with defenders as compared to attackers, especially with Barry Murphy and Peter Casey out injured?
Yeah, of course, they're a huge loss, and you must remember that Graham Mull is missing as well, and you must also remember that Seamus Flanagan didn't start, and of course the King was missing, Keane Lynch,
Yeah.
So
that will be a small bit of concern because you're looking to the likes of Pat Ryan to take his chance inside there. I know Dave Reedy is more of a wing forward, but he was given his chance. Cathal O'Neill as well hasn't really shot out the lights. And I know he's only 20 years of age. Like he will come good, but I suppose for Limerick they'll want him coming good sooner rather than later with those injuries. Now, what I will say is Gerard Hegarty was fairly unstoppable as usual. Had 2 wides, he'll be disappointed with, but the 3 points he's hit the ground running. But it will be very interesting to see.
Yeah, Tom Morrissey had a decent first outing as well, Jack, but maybe he didn't get on the score sheet. And
he was centre forward, which is a different role. Like that's Keane Lynch's role.
Yeah, he was slotted in there to centre forward, a different, and but I thought Tom did all right for the first day out. It was his first. He wasn't involved in the Munster campaign, so he bound to be a bit ring rusty. But you'll probably see a different animal next Friday, Saturday evening. In the Gaelic Grounds.
You will. It'll be Henry Shefflin bringing Galway to the Gaelic Grounds for the first time. 4-22-17 winners over Offaly. Regardless of how poor Limerick were on Sunday, it is going to be, even if Limerick played the same way on Sunday as they did last week, it'll be a huge step up. Offaly just aren't at that level now, but it's a positive start for Henry because I know they were disappointed with their Walsh Cup campaign. They obviously had Evan Nyland is getting that starting berth now on the freeze, trying to replace Chuck Henning, which is an unenviable task. But if Henry can get the best out of Galway, they will be thereabouts in the business end of the league and championship.
Oh, they will. Galway have had a bit of a yo-yo existence since they won the All Ireland in 2017, and but certainly Galway will be there or thereabouts. Like Galway, like they're after winning 4 minors in a row, Jack.
Yeah,
that is a 3 or 4 in a row, but that takes some doing, and there's bound to be some good players coming through it. Although I think Evan Nyland would have predated that actually. Maybe he was on the first one, I'm not sure. But there's some fantastic players in Galway. Like if you look at Garrod McInerney and the goal he got. Dahi Burke, who's going to be the captain this year, regular all-star fullback. You look at the Manions, Conor Whelan, Brian Concannon, Evan Nyland, there are big names, and there's game changers, and there's match winners in that Galway team. But it'll be very interesting. On Saturday night to see the response of Limerick.
Yeah.
To the defeat in Wexford, and that is the unknown. But there is one thing certain: if they go by the tried and trusted formula of recent years, you're going to see a much improved Limerick, because even through the league last year, there was measurable improvement game on game. I know they lost to Galway, I know they lost to Waterford, but there was certainly measurable improvement in Limerick.
Oh, definitely.
So if that's going to be repeated, and I have no doubt it is, you're going to see a much improved Limerick team, Limerick performance on Saturday evening. But also you must factor in the fact that, first of all, Limerick were away in Wexford Park, which is a difficult place. But without harping on that too much, Galway were at home in Pearse Stadium, which is also a difficult place to go. And it was a huge ask of Offaly to go to Pearse Stadium after being promoted and to beat Galway. Now I know that they probably got turned over by 17 points, which was a huge margin, and which will do absolutely nothing for their confidence in terms of going forward. And it doesn't get any easier for them, because they're facing Cork this weekend, who will be high in confidence after their win over Clare. Yeah. So, we might be reading too much into the size of Galway's victory, and we might be reading too much into Limerick's defeat.
Yeah,
I think you'll have a meeting next week, next Saturday evening, somewhere in halfway, and you're going to see a much improved Limerick performance, Jack.
Yeah, I was watching the League Sunday, whatever that program is called, in RT on a Sunday night, just there before this, just a bit more research, and I didn't see it now, but Dave Fitz said he looked over at Connacht at full time, and there was a smile on Connacht's face. So that does not bode well for Galway. It bodes very well for Limerick, and maybe that's just what they needed. Just a small reminder that, look, at the end of the day, they're better than everyone else, but they do need to be on their game to beat everyone.
This is the point. They've been posted up there as the Invincibles. Yeah. And maybe we're all guilty of it, Jack.
Yeah.
We're all guilty of it.
I'll accept that.
But I found that the level of expectation after the Clare game in particular, when you went down tennis, if you were going down tennis with your All-Ireland team, you'd be expecting a difficult challenge there.
Yeah.
And this was essentially a development team or a fringe players team, bar 4, who were from the All-Ireland final team. And it wasn't just beating Clare, but the manner in which they beat them. It sent expectations through the roof. So, this defeat to Wexford, without wanting to do it, Dara Egan might have done Limerick a huge favour.
That's the hope, anyway. Before I get
that's the hope. That's the hope, and as you say, you can't say for certain, but we will know by 9:00 Saturday evening.
Yeah. Before I come to you, I'll ask you your prediction on the game, just running through The other games, you mentioned Cork beat Clare by 9 points. Galway had a huge win over Offaly. That was in Limerick side of the draw. The other side, Kilkenny, 3-point victors over Antrim, an interesting result there. Dublin Waterford played out a draw, and Tipperary beat Laois by 3 points. Like Cork needed to get a win in the park. Clare, from what I saw that game, are way off it. Now, we know how important Tony Kelly is for them. They've Peter Duggan come back. I suppose Colm Galvin is gone. What a brilliant player. Scourge of Limerick for many a year. He was brilliant. He was obviously brilliant in 2013 as a teenager, but in 2018 he was one of the main players. Tony Kelly took all the pundit or applauded when they beat Limerick. He was exceptional. But Kilkenny and Tip just get over the line would be worrying for both those sides, especially for Colm Bonner in Tipperary. They're not going well. But the interesting one I think is Dublin and Waterford, because Waterford were tipped by many as to be the team behind Limerick, and Dublin are going about their business quietly enough. Won the Walsh Cup, probably should have beat Dublin to give away a penalty for the goal. Like, so who do you see are the teams that Limerick will have to be worried about come the summertime this early in the season?
Galway and Cork.
You forget about the other division, so.
Well, they would be the two main contenders, and of course Kilkenny are the perennial contenders.
You can't rule out Kilkenny. I would like,
and I wouldn't be reading too much into the Antrim result. I think there was a similar result in an opening round with Antrim recently, and Kilkenny won the league.
Yeah, well, you can't ever write off Kilkenny. I just think like whenever Clare play Offaly, like I think Offaly will be targeting that game as like this is the game for us to win. And you mentioned there a while ago, like the Michael Fennelly side.
But getting back to Cork, Jack, Cork scored 230 and it looks lovely. It looks lovely. They conceded 221.
Yeah, well, I think they
no Tony Kelly, not the returning Peter Duggan, as you said.
Yeah, from watching the game, what I saw of the game, they seemed to just pull up that the game was out of reach. Now, Cork have an awful lot of players that could be given championship runs. Like, I mean, Limerick's team is fairly nailed down. If it was the same starting team that came out from last year's championship, this year's no one would bat an eyelid. Whereas I think Cork have a number of players that could be moved around. I know Robert Downey has gone out to the wing. There's different. Paddy Power is part of the squad now. He was playing for UCC last night. Just they need to get settled before they play Limerick in the championship, really. But they will have their say, as you say, with Galway as well. Limerick and Galway this Saturday, Matt. Which way will it go?
I'm tipping Limerick to bounce back fully and to pick up a win on Saturday night.
A margin?
Or tight, maybe 3 points.
Yeah, I think it'll be tight. I think it'll be like the semi-final from 2 years ago in Croke Park. No, I think Limerick will win, but I think Limerick are a different team without Cian Lynch. I don't think they'll put up huge scores without Cian kind of dictating the play and bringing players out of it. But I think they'll respond with a win, as you said, maybe a couple of points. We'll look back again to the Camogie now, a 118 to 110 win for Kilkenny over John Lillis' side at the weekend. But turmoil isn't the word, but there was an awful lot of incomings and outcomings with that Camogie side, as you touched on last week. So against the defending league champions, All-Ireland champions in 2020, an 8-point loss is probably a good start. Like, obviously you want to win every game, but definitely a positive start for John Lillis' side.
Positive start, and John Lillis acknowledged it as such in his post-match, as you probably heard, Jack. How do I say that an 8-point defeat is a positive result? But given the circumstances, you must remember key players like Roisin Ambrose, Karen O'Leary, Debbie Murphy, Anya Cunningham weren't there. He handed debuts to the start from the start to 5 players. We had Emma Kennedy, Sinead Barry, L.B. Larkin, Sarah O'Brien, Laura Finlay, all getting first starts. And in the absence of Laura O'Neill, who was also missing, there was a recall for Claire Keating, who has given great service to Limerick in the past. So given all those circumstances, Jack, I think it was a very, very creditable result. And like we did say it here last week, and I'll say it again at the risk of being repetitive. When the draw took place for the groups, Limerick were certainly handed the short straw anyway, because not only did you get Kilkenny and Cork, but you got both of them away in your first two games. How that can be, I don't for the life of me know, Jack.
Yeah, I don't really know.
And if you know, can you tell me?
No, but I don't really know how this league is working, because obviously Limerick played Kilkenny last weekend. Clare and Cork aren't starting their campaigns for another fortnight.
No.
And then Cork are playing Limerick the following week, and obviously Clare are playing Kilkenny. Like, it's obviously an advantage to the team that played the week before. Just like Limerick have a 3-week break.
Yeah.
That Cork have a break. Like, Cork will have a longer wait for the start, which is 2 weeks away, but they'll have that game under their belt. I just don't understand why Clare and Cork didn't play at the weekend. I don't understand, as you said, why Limerick don't play Clare in their second game at home. It's look, it's unfair. Now, if Limerick were playing worse teams than Cork and Kilkenny, would we notice as much? Obviously, going against two of the top three teams in the country, are going to notice where their games are on. But yeah, it doesn't.
The more I think about it, the more annoyed I get, Jack. And
and look,
you can see me beginning to froth from the mouth as you're talking there. You know.
Yeah. See, we can't do anything about off-field. We can't do anything about on-field matters. But look, it was a good start.
Good start. It was a promising start. There's no question about it.
And they have time now to analyse that Kilkenny game, to integrate and say this went well, this didn't go well. And they have time before that Cork game. Now, the only thing is they won't have seen Cork in action. That's what I'm saying. The Cork have the advantage of seeing Limerick in action, and they're like, okay, we can play it in a few weeks' time. They can prepare for Clare. I don't know. You would get frustrated, but not the result you wanted, but positive.
Not the result, but the performance, Jack, was certainly encouraging.
Yeah.
And I suppose that is all in the circumstances. Like the four players that I mentioned now, and throw in Laura O'Neill as well, you're missing a third of your team that finished last year. Like and I know Laura will be back, but it's a big turnover, huge turnover of players.
Yeah, I think
so.
It was only 8 from last year's starting 15 that are left. Like 7 is half the team.
Half the team.
You know, and then it's key players as well. But they'll have time now to go back, look at what went wrong, and hopefully another positive performance against Cork is what you want, because transition is not a word that any team wants to hear. They don't want to be in transition. That's just the way nature. But realistically, that's where Limerick Camogie is at the moment, just with the loss of players. So it's about getting performances, about showing that this is a team going in the right direction, and please God.
But of course, Jack, there's another factor this year, and it's what I call the travel bug, which was off limits for the last 2 years, and now you'll probably have an awful lot of players making up for it this year.
Yeah,
so
and look, you wouldn't.
It's going to be a challenge for county managers. It's going to be particularly a challenge for club managers.
Yeah, obviously, I mean, there's the way the age profile has gone. There's going to be a share of people kind of on J1s. A lot of people might have wanted to emigrate over the last few years, and now they have the chance. So yeah, it's going to be a problem for every county, and it's certainly been felt here in Limerick. I suppose another team in transition is the Limerick Ladies Footballers. They're probably trending more on an upward curve, coming from a lower base. They play London this Sunday in Staker Wallace at 12 o'clock. We ran through the squad last week, the 40-player squad that Graham Shine has named. Very exciting. You were talking about it again. Just a lot of new faces. It's very hard to get a gauge on where Limerick are before their first game. And obviously, London we haven't seen in 2 years. We've seen how the men's footballers in London have reacted. But with the talent in Graham Shine's squad, they have to be looking at promotion.
They have to, Jack. They have to. You spoke there about a lot of new faces. There's nearly more old faces coming back.
That's true as well. Yeah, a lot of 2018.
Because there's a long list of players from 2018. If they're all on board, you've Katrina Davis, you've Rebecca DeLee, Eva Hartigan, Emer Kirby, Sarah Ryan, Loretta Hanley. You know, you name them, they're back on board. So it's nearly more old faces back than new faces in. So it's Mairead Kavanagh is another one that's back, which is fantastic. It'll be very, very interesting. It'll be very, very interesting, Jack, to see. I suppose a game against London would probably be the ideal start, and having it at home. And but obviously, at the same time, it'll be more than a little of a trip into the unknown, because very, very little is known of London, and on account of the pandemic, they haven't been involved for the last couple of years. Yep. So that will be an interesting game on Sunday. But you'd be hopeful that Limerick would get off to the Graham Shine era, off to a winning start. I'd be pretty confident there that there's a decent chance that Limerick will get off. But of course, Jack, you never know with London. You know, who has relocated to London over the last couple of years, and how will it strengthen them? How will it strengthen the London team and all that sort of thing? Because, like, the London team will be drawn from all over Ireland. And, all right, Gráinne McKenna has come in from Monaghan into the Limerick panel, which would be interesting. And actually, Laura Fennelly, who made her debut for Limerick in the Camogie against Kilkenny, was making her debut against her native county. So the few players coming in, like, they always help, certainly, and freshen the thing up. But it'll be very interesting, Jack. I'll be fierce disappointed if Limerick don't get off to a winning start. But I would point out that London could be a bit of a banana skin, because you simply don't know what they'll have.
Yeah, you just don't know what's coming around the corner. And I think a lot of teams in Division 4 of the Men's National League were under the same impression, and they're 2 from 2 now and that. So hopefully Limerick can just hit the ground running. They'll have to focus on themselves, because they won't have much information, if any, on London. But we do wish...
Well, I have exhaustively searched to try and root up some information on them over the last few days. And it's like running into a 10-foot wall, 10-foot thick wall.
Well, if you can't get the information, it's not out there. But look, we'll touch that next week. We'll obviously know more. That's on at 12 o'clock in Staker Wallace. The best of luck to Graham Shiney's side, and they've Offaly and Carlow to come, so we'll be keeping an eye on that over the coming weeks. We have a share of schools to get through, and last Saturday was obviously very disappointing for Irish Galway, for all the players involved, the families, the school, for Limerick in general. But you have to say, at the end of the day, you couldn't help but be happy for St. Joseph's Tulla. I obviously went to a country school, like, with a small selection, so it was nice to see a school like that. And no complaints from Ard Skull. They were beaten 17-14 on the day. Tulla just took a lead just after half time, never relinquished it. But both sides are into the Crow Cup quarterfinals, so there's still plenty to play for Ard Skull. But it was nice to see a school like that win in such a big competition.
It was a huge boost, Jack. I just love seeing minnows coming up and winning competitions, with one caveat, that isn't at the expense of Limerick.
Yeah.
I have to be parochial, but seeing the game, they set out very, very well. They brought huge intensity to the game, Jack, and you wondered, as the first half went on, would they be able to maintain the intensity and the work rate? But by God, they did, Jack.
And then
they were formidable. Absolutely formidable. So, hats off to St. Joseph's Tulla. They have struck a blow for schools all over this province. Like, is it correct that they haven't won a game in the Harty Cup until this year, and they lost the first game to De La Salle?
Yeah, I think they had a draw. They maybe had 2 draws in their history.
Yeah,
so,
then they started taking scalps. St. Coleman's, listen to the litany. St. Coleman's, CBC, De La Salle. now Art Skull Reach. It's a very, very well won Harty Cup.
Yeah, that's the thing. They won it well. They beat all the teams that needed to be beaten. Look, there'll be no complaints from Niall Moore on his side, and there's a brilliant video going around.
They've got to dust themselves down, and I've no doubt that they will. And have a cut at the Croke Cup. Like having lost the provincial final, I suppose it's a bit of a free pass now at this stage. So the
thing for Ard Skull is they've never gone into the Croke Cup as runners up. They've always had that pressure of once champions. Maybe that's what they need to get over the line. But what I will say is credit to Niall Moore. There's a video going around. I think it's on Clare TV. Is the name of the YouTube channel, and he's inside in the dressing room in Tulla, and like he's after seeing his team lose. And Niall Moran's connection with Ard Skull is well over a decade at this stage, and just praising the side. It's brilliant to watch. It's beautiful to watch. It just shows.
Oh, I saw it, Jack. I saw it this morning, and I played it back before we came on. And look, it strikes at the very heart of what sport should be all about. Absolutely fantastic on the part of Niall Moran, and full credit to Niall Moran, and it reflects so well on him as an individual, and on the ethos of his school, that in that moment when they were at their lowest ebb possibly, in terms of sport, that he could go in and make a contribution like that, and not just make it not a rote contribution, but a heartfelt contribution, which comes very, very much across in the video. It's a video worth looking at, and as I say, it strikes at the very heart of what sport should be all about.
Yeah, a true GA man is Niall, and he'll lead his side into the All Ireland series. And look, we wish Ard Skull the best of luck in that.
Well, if that's his approach to it, he has no worries going forward.
No,
because certainly his team, they're in the right place, and their heads are in the right place with a manager like that.
Yeah. Moving on from Ard Skull Reach, there's more schools games.
It wasn't a good Saturday. It wasn't a good weekend for Limerick schools. But Jack, we have to qualify it by saying that it's absolutely fantastic. There are five Munster senior hurling championships in colleges hurling. You've A, B, C, D, and D, and A championship, of course, is the Harty Cup. Now Limerick will be contesting at least three of the finals. Okay. Now, if you take the B final, the B final now, Charleville CBS have made their way to the B final. They beat Doon by a single point in very, very difficult conditions in Kilmallock last Saturday. So, and there is a considerable element of Limerick players from Brewery, Drummond Atlaka, and Granabellingary among the Charleville side. So it's a sort of a home from home school, but they're through to the B final. Kilmallock contested the C semi-final and were beaten by Ennis Diamond by 2 goals, 3-11 to 1-11. Now, Salesian College Palace Kennery this week are involved in the Senior D football final when they're playing Beara Community College. And the final is on this Friday night in Mount Collins under lights at 7 p.m. So that will be an interesting one. But very, very interestingly, Jack, Salesian College are bidding for a double because the following week they're in the D hurling final. And if that wasn't enough, Kalashte Ida in Abbeyfield are in the E final. So, Limerick, if you like, Jack, came tantalising close to a clean sweep. You know,
I'm still can't wrap my head around.
we mightn't win any of them, but I'll tell you, the trend is that Limerick schools, whatever grade they're in, are competitive and are in the mix-up for honours, which is very, very, very heartening.
Yeah, and from all corners of the county as well.
We wish the Salesians the very best of luck on Friday evening. They have a couple of the Limerick under 20 squad on board. Jamie Behan from Ballybrown, Oisin Moss from Mungret, and on the Limerick under 20 squad they have about 5 or 6 of the current 2022 Limerick Minors football squad. They're taking on Beara Community College. Now, Beara Community College have racked up huge scores on the way to the final. They scored 7-19 to 1-1 in the semi-final against Colashton, the Piercing and Glenmire. So, you know, it's going to be a big ask, but I have no doubt. Final is a final, Jack, and they've got there on merit, and here's hoping that Salesians will pull it off in the first half of a double.
Yeah, please God. Your knowledge knows no bounds. Matt, in fairness, Joe. Yeah, the best of luck to all those schools, and it's nice to see schools from all over the county, from Kilmallock to Doon to the city with Ard Sculleresh to Palace Kenry out to Abbeyfield. So there's talent from in every corner.
Like you know, you're saying all the time like about concerns about the strength of hurling in West Limerick, and like this is a step in the right direction, because I'm you know there's players from, well, they're mainly city players that are with the Kildimo panel. Well, the football panel, there's I think there must be up to 10 or 12 or more from Kildimo, Palace Kenry, a couple from Mungret, Ballybrown, Crocora, 1 or 2 from Adair. So good spread of players, and and it's all very, very encouraging, and it's certainly very, very encouraging to see Abbeyfield in the final. Football stronghold of Limerick.
It is, in fairness. We'll just move on to Sigerson and Fitzgibbon before we go. We obviously touched on UCC there, but UL had another good win last night in the quarterfinal. They beat MTU Cork. Was it 222 to 119? I was at that game. Miserable conditions. They're going to play Carlow IT in the semi-final. Now, you saw Carlow. I didn't see them now. I just saw bits of the game. Weren't that impressive, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I was shocked at how poor UCC were on the night. Never really got up to the pace of the game, I thought. You know, for a team that was going for 3 in a row, and for a team that was well populated with, you know, there was up to 6 Cork players, county players on the squad. You had a couple from Limerick. You had Matt Kehoe from Tipperary. Like, you know, they were very, very, very disappointing. I found it very, very hard to make a judgment as to where Carlow are at.
Yeah.
Obviously, certainly in the competition today, even though I haven't seen them, UL seem to be ticking an awful lot of boxes.
Oh yeah, they're a fine team.
You know, and it's one of those years like that. There seems to be momentum behind the third level college competitions in UL, because as we know, the footballers are in the semi-final as well.
Yeah, they're against TU tomorrow.
So, and it would be very, very hard to bet against them.
Yeah, when you go through that UL team, like they've Owen Davis in goals, he's obviously tipping around the Cork panel. TJ Brennan at fullback from Galway. Brian O'Mara at centre back from Tipperary. I don't know. Is he just himself not on the panel for Tipperary, because they definitely don't have the luxury of leaving a player like that out. Keane Galvin, we saw him in Clare, and then from 8 up to 15 from Brian O'Sullivan in midfield. Now, it was Brian O'Grady usually in midfield, but he was named the wing forward last night to Michael Kiley in the corner with the likes of Mark Rogers, Billy Power, Gerard O'Connor, and Niall Brennan got 5 points last night. They they're an exceptional team. They will take some stopping against Carlow. That game is, I think it's going to be next Thursday in Carlow. I'm fairly sure.
I think it is. Yeah, Brian O'Sullivan, of course, is from Kanturk.
Yeah, he has under 20s medal, I'd imagine, All Ireland under 20s medal. And Rory Duff,
pupil of Kalash the Tressa, Kanturk, as far as I know.
Rory Duff from Mungers came on. Conor Grady from Hostelhurstown came on as well. Like, so there's a small bit of Limerick, I suppose, influence intermingled in it. Brian Ryan is obviously the team manager. So yeah, they'll take some beating. Now, if I'd call it now, I'd imagine it'd be them and NUIG in the final. But for Carlow, did Jerry Kelly get sent off straight, or was it 2 yellows? I'm putting 2
yellows, I think.
He'll be all right. So if it's 2 yellows,
yeah,
like he's.
Of course, we know what Brian Ryan brings to the table as well, Jack.
Yeah.
Brian Ryan has he's an enviable track record of success, and he has a pretty strong CV. So I wouldn't underestimate any team that would be under his watch.
Yeah,
you do it at your peril.
Yeah, just on Mark Rogers is just an unreal hurler. For Clare, like if he would be so bad at either for Clare this year, he just makes things happen. He's so dangerous. Anytime the ball comes near him, you think something's going to happen. But Brian O'Grady as well.
He hasn't a Limerick mother or father, has he?
No, we've enough from Limerick, but Clare desperately need him to be on form. TUS are playing at the moment. I'll just see if I can get a score there, and it's NUIG will play WIT in the other semi-final. By the time this comes out, that game will be over, but you're speculating it's going to be NUIG, and I think JMIT are winning. I'll just check that now. But UL versus DCU in the Sigerson Cups. Versus DCU, and then you have NUIG versus MTU Kerry. Again, this will be released after those games. But if you were to call, who would be in the final of the Sigerson?
UL and Kerry.
Yeah, MTU have looked very, very good, but UL have been brilliant now. I'm just checking the score here.
And we'd have David Clifford playing against his old school in the final.
Yeah, but thank God he's wearing a Limerick jersey for.
Thanks for God, he's on the right side of the divide, Jack.
Yeah, for one jersey. It's 115 to 1-8 there at the moment. So JMIT are
in favour of.
So it's in favour of JMIT. So they're 7 points ahead at the moment. But
Jack, they're a school, a college I know very, very little about, but I would suspect that they're mainly drawn from Galway.
I was looking for a squad there. If they had 30 players, I'd say at least 25 from Galway. And I didn't really recognise any of the names either, but they're going well. They look set for a Fitzgibbon Cup semi-final.
Well, you see, there you go. And we spoke a while ago about, in the context of Galway, about the 4 All-Ireland minors in a row. I have no doubt that squad is well peppered with players that were involved in those 4 All-Irelands.
Yeah, at the moment as well, UL are playing Mary I in Freshers Hurling. Now, I don't have a team sheet for either side, but I do know that UL can call upon Adam English, Colin O'Neill and Colin Coughlin in the forward line. You wouldn't want to be for a first year playing against them, would you?
And Patrick O'Donovan.
Is he there as well?
He's.
Yeah, what would you do if you were a first year? Maybe after going out the night before, if you came.
They're supposed to. Well, yeah, you'd have a problem, but they're supposed to be very strong. Well, Patrick O'Donovan told me that they were very strong.
You could not be strong with those players.
He was saying that they had a number of players from the Cork successful minor team as well. You know, so
I think Ian Hurley could be in UL as well from Newcastle. I'll try and get a team sheet for the next day because they're starting. I think it's the first round, or that's starting as well. So you keep an eye on the freshers, but just the talent in Limerick.
These team sheets can be elusive at times.
Yeah, they can be. But please God, now your first task was to get the jersey sorted. You're well on your way to that. You will make sure.
I'm holding my breath, Jack, because things move very, 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 very slowly. But you mean to tell me now that you wouldn't be as convinced as I am about that particular thing?
Yeah, it is frustrating. But are you going to be going into Glenroe now next year and be like, lads, you need to fork out for new jerseys and get a big white patch on the back of it?
Well, I won't mind. Tis what's inside in the jerseys I'll be worried about. What they do with them,
Well, you're worried about what's on the back of them as well, in fairness.
I think you should ask our colleague Tom Clancy what he thinks of it. I'm sure he will be very, very, very much in my corner on this one.
Yeah, I suppose people commentate.
Tom didn't have the best of experiences when he was trying to commentate a game when he couldn't read the numbers.
Yeah, I think that game was Ooland and Bradford in the intermediate football final. That the Moolah jerseys, I think, just had a white jersey with a red outline of a white number. It's very, very hard to call.
It wasn't the worst that I saw.
I suppose who gets that award?
Cloney and Waterford.
And what was their story?
They were playing Galway amongst the clubs down in Dungarvan.
And what was the layout of the numbers, or did they even have numbers?
It was a blue and white jersey, light blue, very light blue, with a white number.
No outline on the number.
No, couldn't read them at all.
Well, gone are those days, please God, says you. Just thinking on our own Ballysteen jerseys, the stripe doesn't go around the back, so we'll be grand. We can keep our jerseys. But sure, if anyone wants to
I have a feeling, Jack, that you don't like if you have to have a white patch on your back when you'll be playing in the championship this summer. Is that Jack's
it depends what's going on. If you have white somewhere in your jersey, it's grand to have a white panel. But if you don't have white in the front, I don't like white, a big white block in the back. But while we're talking about jerseys, if anyone wants
is that vanity now on your part, Jack?
I don't know I'd be in it at all, but just looking at it, just for people to say, where are you from? Ballysteen, and have nice jerseys. If anyone wants to sponsor a set of black jerseys for Ballysteen, I know we could probably do with a new set of them. They're very nice now. So,
well, if we see you living in a goal, we'll say you're more interested in the number on the jersey rather than you are in what's happening in front of you.
Sure, I could be looking at the boys in front of me. I could be getting distracted by their numbers. So, yeah, look, I don't mind. The white patch works for Sarsfield's Blanc Cork. Nice blue and black jersey with the white in the back. So, yeah, that's enough jersey talk for now. We've an hour and 7 on the clock. I think that's all the business we needed to attend to. I suppose congratulations to Nicky Quaid, who was named on the hurling team of the week, which I suppose is standard enough. But to Peter Nash, for the footballers, because they don't get the recognition they deserve.
It's the second week in a row that we've had a player on it.
Yeah, and I was looking through the team this week. Now, to be fair to Kerry and Armagh, they did play very well, but there was 11 players from Division 1 named in the team, which goes to show just the effort that Peter had to go to get named in the team in the first place. So a shout out to Peter.
But Peter at the moment, as you know, Jack, is in a very, very, very rich vein of good form.
Oh yeah.
Like we saw it in the Limerick Championship last year when he was nearly unplayable, like, wasn't he? Yeah,
and he was pretty much the same against Corofin and Munster. That I still think.
Yeah, why we're surprised knowing the guy? I don't know, because
I wouldn't say we're surprised either.
No, we're not surprised, because look, Peter gives it everything, whether it is hurling or football. The energy he brings to both codes, like, is just simply phenomenal,
Yeah, that's a nice way to finish. Now, the games this weekend, Saturday, Gaelic Grounds, 7 o'clock, Limerick versus Galway. First game since March 2020 that there'll be no COVID restrictions in the Gaelic Grounds. Should be a right cracker. You'll be expecting probably up the bones of 10,000 there at the Gaelic Grounds. So that should be a good game. Footballers are off this weekend. The Camogie team aren't back till the end of February, and the ladies footballers play against London at 12 o'clock on Saturday.
Just we omitted to say it there, Jack, but the minor Camogie Championship is underway at the moment, and the minors were beaten by Tipperary in the first round in Kilmallock, 115 to 3 points. Now that might be a distorted scoreline, because there was a gale force wind blowing down the field in Kilmallock, and it was with Tipperary's had it at their backs in the first half, at the end of which they led by 11 points to 1. And Limerick were unable to claw back in the second half. Now they have an opportunity to get back into contention this weekend, because they're travelling to play Antrim in Abbottstown on Sunday, I think at 2 o'clock in round 2. And again, Jack, this comes down to what we spoke about, the senior Camogie thing. We've 3 games, 2 of them are away from home, and back-to-back away from home games. to Antrim. Now, Antrim is a halfway house in Abbottstown. And then in the final round, we travelled to Wexford. You know, why is that a computer? Is there not a computer? Bill Gates and all of them that devised that we could have the home game in the middle.
Yeah, I don't know what it'd be worth Bill Gates while. I don't think he'd be getting enough money for it. But I know what you mean. It's just,
would the Collison brothers come up with anything that might do it?
To be fair to Limerick, they could have seeded that home game against Antrim and give them the benefit of travelling to Abbottstown. No, I don't know. They dare not, but that could be one of the ways. But you shouldn't really be forced into a situation like that.
I think there's a plan there where Antrim are concerned that it hits, and Derry in the minor championship, that it's a halfway house.
That's only fair as well. It is.
I think it's only fair. I agree with it. But Limerick are away from home in 2 games together, back to back.
Yeah. Look.
It's the general principle. You're getting tired of listening to me complaining about it.
I'm getting tired of you listening to you complaining in general.
Be prepared to be listening to me. Like, you were tired of me complaining about the jerseys, and we might be getting movement, Jack.
The Hurlers lost 1 game now, and it was all complaining. So please God, they can win at the weekend, and you'll be in better form. But
and Nicky Quaid didn't get an All-Star, so
yeah, but sure, he didn't get an All-Star in 2018 as well. Trying to go back that far, I suppose. Quickly, last thing on the Quaids. Obviously, we spoke before Joe Quaid's Laker Gael last week, but I'm sure you watched it, and a fitting tribute. And I suppose the Laker Gael in general, it's just such a great service.
Had a fantastic service, and what a subject in Joe Quaid. What a contribution Joe Quaid has made. Absolutely phenomenal to Limerick hurling. Now, he was involved right at the very heart of the start of this when he was in charge of the Limerick under-16 team that won the Tipperary supporters. That was one of the catalysts for the success that Limerick have today, and it should never be forgotten for him. And this is the Joe Quaid like that Limerick Camogie took him on, and we saw what happened in 2014. 3 All-Irelands in the 1 year. You know, one got Limerick promoted, and lost 1 All-Ireland final. Came back the following year, which isn't always easy, and won it. And was involved, had an overview, and was involved in the minor A winning team and on the junior team that year. 3 All-Irelands, phenomenal in the 1 year for Camogie. That was something that slipped a bit under the radar, but of course that was pre-Treaty Talk, Jack. If Treaty Talk was on around by then, I'm sure people would have heard quite a lot about it, you know. But look, Joe Quaid's contribution to the game, and indeed the Quaid family's contribution to the game, is simply, Jack, phenomenal.
It is, and I'd recommend anyone to watch it. I'm sure it's on RTE Player, or sorry, TG Player. I'm sure there's a lot of people have it recorded. It's recorded now if anyone wants to call over.
I have it recorded. I'm not depending on players or anything like that. So
no, there you have it. Forget them players. Get the Sky Plus box, and that's
you know, I couldn't have thought of a more worthy subject than Joe Quaid. Absolutely fantastic guy. And you know, you saw what he did in Kildare. You saw what he did in Westmeath. There was no fluke about it, Jack. No fluke whatsoever. I
would be going for that. There should be a Limerick subject every year on the Laker Gael. But look, that's for another day. For now,
I would go a small bit further, Jack. There should be a Limerick subject every week.
You've no time for anyone outside of Limerick. But
well, as Raf keeps accusing me of having green mist in my eyes.
Well, you definitely have the green mist this week, but we'll have it on Saturday night in the Gaelic Grounds. But look, a huge thank you to everyone for tuning in. Obviously, a huge thank you to you, Matt. And we'll be back next week to look back on those 2 games this weekend. Look forward to some more football action. We'll have some input from Pab. But for now, best luck to the senior hurlers and the Camogie, or the ladies footballers and the minor Camogie team. But until then, we're talking
and to the Salesian College.
Oh yeah, and I suppose to UL and
of course to UL, who are by the way managed by there is a Limerick and a strong Limerick connection and a vital Limerick connection in that they're managed by Declan Bruder of Newcastle West. The Lavin brothers from Adair are among his backroom team, and the team is captained by Paul Maher from Adair. So, without wanting to jump ahead, how nice it would be to see a Limerick man lifting the Sigerson Cup.
Yeah, we won't get too ahead of ourselves.
We won't get too ahead of ourselves, Jack. We won't get too ahead of ourselves.
We'll be looking forward to UL in a final.
But we are hoping.
We are hoping. Until then, Matt, we'll talk again soon.
The impression again we get out with what you put into. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Johnny Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word court today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high. He's put it over.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.